Is my mic on? I'd like to welcome everybody to the March 27th meeting of the Parks and Shade Tree Commission. We're going to wait like one more minute for one more member, but then we'll get started because we have a few things we can start with. Actually, I'd like to introduce our newest member, Marty Marino, and ask if you'd like to say a couple words about being here in Rehoboth.
Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. I've been in Rehoboth full-time since '96, and I'm happy to be here. Can't quite believe that I am, but little bit about me. Background is of an elementary classroom teacher and also an art teacher. I am an artist, and I kind of look at the landscape in that way. I have my own personal landscaping I always see as a palette. And I am pretty passionate about trees and the preservation of them. And I'm looking forward to being a part of the process of keeping Rehoboth as beautiful as it is and hopefully making it even better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, let's go. Should we do the roll call?
Yes.
Okay, we'll move on to roll call.
Carolyn Diefendorfer present.
Marty Marino, present.
Renee Simonton present.
And I'm Laura Ritter, chairman, present. And we're still expecting Katie, but she'll just have to introduce herself when she gets here. Do we do the correspondence now, or should we do that?
Save it.
Okay, we're going to save the correspondence for the case that it concerns. And we have the minutes. We have a lot of minutes.
All right, so there's 3 sets of minutes. It might make sense to take them one at a time.
Yes.
So there's the January 2023 minutes. Some of you were here for that meeting, correct?
Yeah.
Three of us.
Three of us
So
were
there's
here
a
for that.
quorum for that?
Yes.
I'd recommend, since you weren't here, that you should abstain from that vote.
Actually, yeah, I was here.
Okay, you were here.
Yes, I
So-
was here, yeah.
right.
So I move that we approve the January 23rd, 2023 minutes.
I second that.
Can we take a vote?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you.
All right, and then we have 2 earlier sets of minutes from 2022, and I don't think we have a quorum here for those.
We have a
I think
quorum
we do for the November.
November one.
You were here in November, right?
Yeah.
Renee?
Yes.
Yeah, so we have a quorum for November.
Okay, and have you all reviewed those notes?
Yes.
Minutes, sorry.
Yeah, Ann was going to correct the spelling of my first name on the November. Yep, so she fixed that. All right, so I move that we approve the November 28th, 2022 minutes.
I second that motion.
Okay, can we have a vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, those minutes are approved.
Okay, and then finally, we have the August 22
And
minutes.
we don't have a quorum for
I mean, we
that.
don't have a quorum for those.
And we won't when Katie gets here either, because I think there were only 2, Laura and Katie. So,
And
Yeah,
so,
because Spunky wasn't here and Kesmoto wasn't here, so,
have you had the chance to review those minutes?
yes.
I wasn't part of that minute.
I'm the only one.
Okay. There is a legal duty under FOIA to approve minutes. And usually you need a quorum to do something unless there is a legal duty to act. And here, there's a legal duty to approve the minutes. So you can vote on them without being there. That's okay. Someone can make a motion.
Okay, so I move that we approve the August 22nd, 2022 minutes. Just go ahead and second it.
I
Yeah.
second that motion.
And here's Katie. We're about to approve the minutes for August 2022. Did you get a chance to read them?
Yes, it did.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve that first set of minutes from August. Did you have any questions about August?
No, I did not.
Okay, well then,
So,
may I have a vote?
aye.
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 Aye. All the minutes are approved. Thank you so much. And thank you, Anne, for doing all those minutes. That was a lot of work. Okay, I think we can then, being that there's no old business, we can move to the first case. Are you all here for one or the first case? Okay. Yes. And if you wouldn't mind, can we put the
pictures and all.
the picture of the site plan on the TV screen?
Oh, the site plan?
Yeah.
I didn't provide the site plan as part of my report.
She will,
It's attached
it's
in the agenda.
okay, let me just say first that the purpose of this meeting is to conduct an administrative appeal requested by David and Anita Trexler, owners of the property at 215 Laurel Street.
Do you want me to go ahead and start while Anne's getting that turned on?
What is she doing?
Turning on the,
It up.
getting it
Oh,
displayed.
okay, yeah, sure.
Okay. The following is the report of the city arborist with regard to the above referenced appeal that is to be heard before the commission on Monday, March 27, 2023. The applicant is constructing a new home and was issued his tree permit on December 7, 2022. The permit allowed removal of 3 trees and required replanting of 2 trees to meet minimum density. The 2 trees remaining were a specimen 8-inch diameter dogwood and a 10-inch diameter crepe myrtle. The 2 trees approved to be planted were a river birch and a white oak, both 3-inch diameter and 12 feet tall. On December 14, it came to the city's attention that the protected dogwood tree was removed without a permit. Notice of violation was issued that required replanting and payment of a fine. Since the dogwood was a specimen tree, 16 inches of additional new tree caliper was required to be planted as a condition of occupancy. 253-32F. Any tree designated in the tree protection plan to be saved, which is damaged during construction or as a result of construction, as determined by the city arborist, shall be treated in accordance with accepted ANSI standards or replaced with a tree or trees equal to the caliper value of the tree removed. However, any specimen or historic tree damaged as described above shall be replaced with trees of a total caliper equal to 2 times the caliper value of the tree removed or damaged, except that in the case of a specimen tree as described in 253-28A1A or B, or in the case of a historic tree, no replacement tree shall be less than 6 inches caliper. The applicant's updated planting plan shows 3 additional trees to be planted with 2 small species and 1 canopy. With a minimum required size of 3-inch caliper, there is 7 inches of mitigation remaining for a fee in lieu. The Parks and Shade Tree Commission has the sole authority to grant a fee in lieu of mitigation. 253-36 Administrative Appeals 1. Fee in lieu of mitigation. A fee in lieu of mitigation may be granted only by the Park and Shade Tree Commission through the appeals process and upon a recommendation from the city arborist. Before granting a fee in lieu of mitigation, the applicant must demonstrate that the replacement of trees on the project site is not a viable option because meeting the requirements of this article would result in undue hardship, that all reasonable alternatives relevant to protection and mitigation have been exhausted, and that granting a fee in lieu of mitigation will not adversely impact the intent and purpose of these regulations.
Anyone have questions for Liz?
Not yet.
I'll stay here then.
Liz, where was the dogwood?
It was in the front.
I have a picture here. Let me just, yeah, it was in the front.
Okay.
See if that, you can see it right there. There's the holly kind of close to the front door, and then the dogwood is the large tree to the left of the holly. To the left of the holly.
Oh, my. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Would the property owners care to address the commission?
Yes.
I was gonna say, you can do it sitting down, yeah.
Sit stand.
Oh,
I did?
You're getting mixed signals.
Yeah. Yeah, so, thanks for your time today. I was just reflecting that I'm on my township zoning hearing board, so to be on this side is a different experience for me. So I had some comments that I wanted to make. The first thing is that the removal of the dogwood tree was not intended. With the situation of the new house, the foundation of the house was 8 inches from the location of the dogwood tree. And in the process of excavating, the tree was damaged. I got a call from the builder, said, you know, got bad news. In the process of excavating, they accidentally took out the dogwood tree. So that's the first thing I want you to understand, is that we wanted to keep the dogwood tree. It was a surprise to me when we got the call, but here we are. The second point I wanted to make, and I don't know if this is pertinent to your work as a tree commission, but we did pay the initial fine of $500, and I talked to Liz about it, because the fine, the code says the fine should be between $250 and $500. And I was like, well, why are we being fined $500 for, you know, a tree that wasn't intended to be removed? It was an accident, and the response was, well, we always charge a $500 fine. And I'm like, well, it seems like we should have some criteria for when we fine $250 or when we fine $500. Just an indiscriminate, everybody pays a $500 fine seems like not a good idea to me. I think there's a difference between a smaller tree that was accidentally removed versus perhaps a larger tree that was purposely removed. Just mention that. So the proposed plan here is going to be a significant upgrade on the plantings on the lot when we originally purchased it about a year ago. So the original lot had the crepe myrtle tree out front, which we're keeping. It had the dogwood tree, and it had 2 holly bushes along the rear property line, which the city considers to be trees. So per agreement between the builder and Liz, the holly trees were removed and are being replaced with 2 taller shade trees in the backyard. And then what we're proposing here is 3 additional trees, 1 taller shade type tree in the front yard, and then 2 ornamental trees along the side yard. So the end result is we're going to have, I think, 6 trees in the lot, which is more than we had when we purchased the property, and twice of what the city requires for new construction. So we're exceeding the code, and so I wanted to make that point. The other thing, couple other things. So to replace, the code, I guess, today says you have to replace double the caliber inches. So this was an 8-inch diameter tree, I believe, Liz?
Yes.
Yes, but it was a specimen tree. That's why it's doubled.
Doubled, so we have to put in 16 inches of caliber trees. I talked to the builder, who talked to the tree guys, and we got some costs for trees. And of course, as you get bigger, the cost starts to get exorbitant, so it seems to make most sense to plant 3-inch diameter trees. So you're talking 5 or 6 trees to try to squeeze onto this lot. It just doesn't seem like it's a responsible or reasonable thing to do. So even with this plan, we have 6 trees, which is more than most lots have in Rehoboth. And I think to try to squeeze in 3 more trees, I just don't know where you would put them. And so that's why, we're here and we're requesting that you guys cut us a break on that. If we have to pay a fee, whatever is the appropriate response. I also am aware that the township, or the city, is actively developing a new tree code. And I read through that code, and I believe the code says that if a protected tree is removed without permit, the new requirement would be to replace it with the same amount of caliber inches rather than double. So I know that the final meeting to review that proposed tree code is early next month, maybe in a couple weeks. So if that code is passed, this proposal would meet the requirements, the new requirements of that code. So I would ask that you consider that when you're deliberating. And I even wonder if it makes some sense to suspend any decision on this application for a month or two. I don't think our building is intended to be complete till mid to late May. So we probably won't be doing this tree planting for 2 months. So maybe it would make most sense to delay any decision on this application until we have better direction on the new tree code. So that's all I had, but I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Just to be clear, do you want to withdraw and wait, or?
Well, I would welcome input. I don't know how long it takes from a final hearing on the new tree code to when it would be realistically enacted into law.
I doubt if it'll happen before May.
Well, and I guess I have a question for Alex. Which code applies?
The current one. The new tree code hasn't been adopted yet.
If they were to withdraw their case, which code applies? Since the violation occurred under the old code, which code applies?
The old code, but keep in mind, there's only a 30-day appeal timeframe.
Right.
So if the case is withdrawn, it can't come back in 2-3 months.
But doesn't the tree commission have some flexibility in the enforcement of the code? I mean, if we know after several years of deliberation that the tree code is going to be changed, and there's general recognition that the existing code is unfair because it results in conditions like this, is it fair then or reasonable to penalize us to pay $1,200 a tree or whatever the code says? I think that's,
Well,
it doesn't seem fair.
don't forget the new code has much higher fees involved in it. So he, applied for his tree permit, tree removal and all that under the old code with all those old review fees and tree permit fees, and those are all significantly increased in the draft code.
Right, in the new code.
So
What fees would they be?
the review fee, the tree plan review fee, the tree removal per inch fee. But keep in mind, it's all still a draft code, and we've had significant public feedback, and,
Wait.
anything could change with that.
Liz, there isn't going to be a penalty for removing a specimen tree in the proposed code?
Yes.
Yes.
But the charter limits us to $500 per tree remove without a permit, but the replanting and all that.
Well, that's the penalty on it. The actual fee associated with getting a permit is, if you have a large tree, is significantly higher under the new code.
And the plan review fees
Right.
doubled too.
Right.
Because keep in mind, the original code is from 2006.
Right.
Okay, so nothing has been updated in terms of fees and stuff like that.
I want to ask a question. Would street trees in front of the property be a possibility to replace some of those inches? Because I don't believe there are street trees in front of the house at this point, correct?
I don't think so.
No, and I
No.
No.
feel like we looked at it and it was too narrow, or they had too much, things in the way. Something like that. And it wouldn't be able to cover all their inches.
Right, but I'm just thinking of, to cut down on the number of inches that a fee in lieu would be covering.
I mean, quite frankly, the fee in lieu is a little cheaper than planting and maintaining a tree. So if you're just trying to save money, a fee in lieu is a better,
Right, right.
because you pay the fee one time. You don't have to prune the tree, you don't have to water it, fertilize
Right,
it, remove
right,
it, grind the
right.
stump when it dies.
Right.
Liz, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Was that removal self-reported, or is it something that the city discovered?
I honestly can't remember. Maybe Mr. Trexler remembers better.
So I wasn't involved.
Okay.
I got a call from our builder the day of the excavation that the dogwood had been damaged. And like within 2 or 3 days, I got a letter from
Yeah.
the city saying that we have been fined.
Yeah,
So I believe it probably was self-reported.
well, even if it wasn't, in this case, we do a post demolition inspection, so it's very obvious whether or not, like, they know that most of the contractors do self-report in this case.
Okay.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Yes, I have, I have a question. So we're looking at the need to replace 7 inches. And I get that the lots are small. Do you have any desire to attempt to find another spot for an additional tree, or?
I do not. I mean, the builder, we haven't really worked out who's paying the cost of these tree planting, but he said, well, we'll just like throw 4 ornamental trees, like dogwood trees or whatever, along the side. I'm like, man, I really don't want to squeeze them in.
Right.
And, once they start growing,
Oh, no, I get that. Because and I don't know what's on your neighbors' properties. When I look at this, I think, well, there might be a spot for one additional sort of in the back left corner.
Well,
But-
what we normally do, and if you didn't catch the part in the code where it says only upon recommendation of the city arborist, so whenever anybody meets the minimum density, I think it's within reason to recommend a fee in lieu of mitigation. We've set 3 trees of these
Okay.
species are the minimum.
Okay.
A lot of people do elect to kind of what you say, you can squeeze how many hornbeams in a 50-foot wide backyard right in a row, and they make a wonderful hedge. But to the point of which I don't think we should be forcing people to do that if they already meet the minimum density. So yes, could he plant them all on his lot with some rearrangement? Sure. Is that within reason to expect him to do when he can request a fee in lieu and he meets the minimum?
Okay.
I think we should be willing to grant a fee in lieu in that case, and that's how that's how the code reads, and that's kind of
Okay.
the line we've met, so to speak.
I mean, to me, it seems like if there is space in. To me, it seems like if there is space in front of the house, that would be a nice place, or at least on that block, because I don't think that in the 3rd block of Laurel Street, there are that many street trees that I can remember, anyway. That would be a good place for, mitigation, not necessarily on the property. I mean, I understand that, the trees will obviously grow and they want room for other planting and, don't want to squeeze in trees that they don't have to. So, I mean, if,
The front porch is 10 feet from the sidewalk.
okay,
And so it's pretty close. And then you got the sidewalk, there's a narrow strip of grass, which is maybe 3 feet at most between the sidewalk and the curb.
It's like Newcastle.
Crepe myrtle to the right. On the I don't think there's a lot of room in the front yard for any additional planting.
Well, along the strip and the,
Between the sidewalk and,
between the sidewalk and the street? Okay.
is that a healthy environment for planting trees? I don't know. I mean, it's a pretty narrow strip.
It is,
The city does it.
The
I
city
mean,
does it?
yes. It's like if you look along, which streets were just done, Liz? Delaware and
Delaware.
Wilmington?
Yeah, we plant very small species, so like think redbud, dogwood size, usually not those two necessarily because they're a little bit widespread, but we plant small species that can survive with limited growing space and don't get into the wires. Trees will be much happier in a yard.
Well, yes, yeah.
There are definitely, I think the telephone poles are on the, the telephone poles are on the south side of the street, so there are wires cutting across,
Okay.
for sure. And I definitely wouldn't want to plant a street tree that's going to have roots that kind of lift up the sidewalk. We're putting in new sidewalks and curbs.
Yeah, that's why, like I said, we plant the small species suitable for that environment. But it is a harder life, if you will, as a street tree there.
yeah, and they don't have as long of a rate of survival, but
Yeah.
it, it
Well,
does.
and if the applicant wanted to explore planting trees there, that would be perfectly fine, but it seems like he would rather just pay the fee in lieu of mitigation.
Right.
Okay. So correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it was at the August meeting that the commission set a fee of $400 per inch.
Actually, if you go back and read those minutes that we just approved, that was a minimum.
Okay.
We set a minimum baseline. We call it a baseline. But I don't think that we are limited to,
No, that's okay. I just
Or
looking at,
$100.
So we're talking about at least $400 times 7 inches.
Correct.
Right, yeah. So would be the fee in lieu.
Well, and keep in mind, you guys can approve the fee in lieu, and if after doing further research, they decide to plant he doesn't have to take that fee in lieu, right? So he
Okay,
could then
so
plant
we-
all the inches back on his property if he wanted.
Okay. Or a combination if you were to so choose?
That might be a better question for Alex. I guess it would depend on how you phrase your motion.
That's correct, Liz.
Okay.
You could do a combination, 25336C3. It's in deciding appeals and fees in lieu of mitigation. The Parks and Shade Tree Commission may impose any additional restrictions or standards as may be necessary. So you could combine a fee with other activity.
Okay.
Yeah, right. So they would just say $400 per inch for up to 7 inches to be adjusted accordingly. Yeah.
Renee, does anyone else have any questions or comments?
I don't.
No.
I would just, my comment is that I don't think that this builder did enough to protect that tree. And a 50 by 100 lot is standard in Rehoboth. All the lots are, my lot's the same. That is a standard lot. This is not a small lot for Rehoboth. This is just your normal lot. And I just feel that if a builder is just going to go in and not protect a specimen tree that has been noted as such by the city, it's just kind of ignoring the whole point of having a tree commission, because it's not in the spirit of what we want homeowners to do. I understand you weren't there for it, but something has to be done about builders just demolishing a perfectly healthy specimen tree, and you can see from the photo, it was a beautiful tree. So I think that the minimum, the fee in lieu of mitigation must be higher than what we would do in a normal tree that, there are lots of reasons people come and ask us to remove trees, and we have agreed to it in other cases. But in this case, I'm not opposed to you as homeowners, you're going to be my neighbors. I just don't think that this commission can allow a builder to just demolish a specimen tree and only pay $400 per caliper inch for it. That's just not suitable in my mind. So I would like to propose something more in the range of $2,000 or $3,000 per caliper inch. I think something much higher than 400.
Would you like to close the public hearing aspect and move into deliberations? You could ask if there's any public comment. Or if,
I thought we were supposed to deliver, and people are supposed to give their opinions. They don't have to agree with me.
Correct.
We don't have to come up with, I mean, that's how I feel. You guys can all disagree with me if you want. I'm only one vote.
Do you have any kind of track record on what we've done in the past on this?
So I can interject with that. This is the first time in the 7.5 years I've been here that somebody has removed a tree without a permit and then come for a fee in lieu of mitigation. It's not happened. So there is no, which wouldn't matter anyways, because each case is considered unique. But yeah, there's no previous ruling you can look back on.
Well, we have had cases where people built right up to the tree and kind of gave us no alternative but to
Yes.
take out the tree. And I think we have a similar case. And I think, go ahead and respond to what you think.
Well, wait, didn't Alex say we should close the public?
Yeah.
the public hearing aspect, so just not taking any new evidence, you can ask if there's any more public comments.
Oh, I thought you meant, so then close it to the public so we can discuss it? Is that it?
Correct,
Okay.
not an
Okay.
executive session, yeah.
Well, I kind of want to give them a chance to respond because,
Let's-
would you like to respond? I think if you're a public official yourself,
Sure.
we're in a tough spot here.
A couple things. I mean, the tree, the dogwood tree was 8 inches from the foundation. So whenever the tree plan was approved, I don't understand the procedure. I guess the builder meets with Liz and they decide what's going to be kept and so on. I think it was an oversight to assume that a tree 8 inches from a foundation can be saved. I don't know if the building should be moved over, but whatever. I think no matter how careful somebody's being, unless they're using shovels, it's going to be hard to save a tree that's 8 inches from an excavation.
Well,
The other thing I'll mention is if you're going to impose fines of $2,000 per inch, we're obviously going to squeeze 6 trees onto that lot because that's going to be a lot cheaper than paying this fee. And you're going to end up with an over-treed lot, which is not attractive for the city. I don't think that's what you want.
let me interject a little. The tree was not 8 inches from the foundation of the home. It was probably, and I don't know this for a fact, probably 8 inches after they finished their overdig. And there are several very easy ways to preserve trees that are close to the overdig, which is hand digging, number one, air spade, walk behind trenchers, all very common techniques that are used in the United States for tree preservation that add very, very little to the overall cost. Granted, it's kind of too little too late in this circumstance, but there are certain methods when contractors ask that we do recommend, that I recommend.
Liz, did the builder ask about any of those methods to?
In this scenario, I don't remember, but I'm sure they're relatively, this is not the first house they've built in town, okay? So I'm sure we've gone over them at one point or another. Like the builders know you can hand dig and use different equipment. The air spade might be a little out of their comfort zone, but the other couple of techniques are pretty normal.
But he didn't ask specifically about this
I can't-
particular tree.
I don't remember them asking specifically. We did meet on site to go over because we did have a few of those like holly bushes / trees, which they showed up on the survey. It didn't really trigger. They don't really trigger the planting requirements. They would have had to plant the 2 trees anyways. So But I do remember meeting on site. I don't remember them asking specifically about the dogwood. You could see in the picture that it was flagged to, you can see right there, the green
Right.
flag.
Right.
The green flag means it was, when we met on site, he had the trees to be removed flagged and the ones to remain flagged. And then don't forget that we do a 24-hour pre-demolition inspection. So the demo contractor calls us and says, we're going to demo on this date. We go out and we make sure that the utilities are disconnected and that all the trees to be protected have the orange fence, so there's no miscommunication, right?
Right.
And then after demo, we also go and make sure that all the trees are alive, not damaged, and still have their fence. So in this instance, it occurred during the digging of the foundation, so after the demolition, but, you know, right when they first started building the house. And this would not be the first time that a tree has fallen in an overdig. That happens at least once a year.
So in previous cases where that has happened, what's been the normal procedure? Does the demo contractor call and say it fell in, or, like, because you're saying this was the first time it was removed?
This is the first time we've been to an appeal over mitigation.
Oh,
That's never in my history here.
oh.
Because in the past, you came up with a plan and the homeowners agreed with your plan.
Well, no, I don't come up with the plan. I just quote the code as to what needs to be done, right? This is a specimen tree.
Well,
It's doubled. And then they develop a planting plan that I either require to be amended if it doesn't meet the code or approve.
Y- But in other cases where the trees have fallen in, what has,
What did they do?
what did they do? What happened?
Plant a row of horn beams or plant like a few red buds in the back or plant, recently we had somebody with a lot of mitigation, not a similar circumstance, just a lot of plantings, and they did larger trees. They got 4.5-inch trees. So same, less total number of trees, but bigger caliper inches.
Oh.
And that's what worked for them, so.
If they didn't
You could do
plant the
that.
trees, what did they pay in the fines?
I just said this is the first time that we've had a tree removed without a permit come to this commission in my 7 years here. I'll put that caveat, I don't know the before me.
The trouble is, the fees and everything that we've talked about in the past, some of them were really out of date, and the value of the houses now is so much higher than it was even 10 years ago, let alone, when some of these regulations went into effect. So we had a limit of, I don't know, $5,000 at one point, but it was just totally inappropriate for the value of the properties now, because I mean, to be honest, builders are not going to listen if it's not a high number. We're going to have more of these trees, and more trees in Rehoboth are going to come down because of it.
So I hear what you're saying, and the builder made the error. In my opinion, there should be some fines attached to the builder.
Yeah.
The homeowner, that's where I'm struggling, is making it punitive for the homeowner when they did not request for it to be taken down. That's where I'm struggling, is it's the builder that should be, the builder or the demo company should be fined.
I agree.
We
with
don't
you.
have, I know we as a commission don't have that ability, but I am struggling with making it punitive for the homeowner when they weren't here. They clearly wanted that tree to be saved. That's where I'm having a hard time. And maybe what needs to happen is, going forward, we need to, as property owners, try to get the commissioners to take up putting fines into the code for the demo companies, for the builders, for the businesses that aren't following the rules.
So in the
That's
code,
where I struggle.
in the code, every single fine in the building code, zoning code, all that, it always, property maintenance always falls back on the property owner. They are ultimately the only one that we can fine in the code. Now, in cases where trees get removed without permits and there's developers, I'd say 9 times out of 10 it is taken care of by the developer, the fine. And typically, I talk to them and I address the letter, the actual notice of violation to them. If it's not clear when it occurred or who was responsible, it might go to the property owner with the developer contact, like as the copy at the bottom. But I would say that most of the time the developer does end up eating that cost, or part of that cost at least.
Yeah, I wouldn't have as much of an issue of doing the very high mitigation fee that Laura is talking about if it didn't fall on the homeowners that didn't
Exactly.
that didn't knowingly take down the tree.
Yeah, you penalize the wrong person because the incentive of the high cost you're proposing is to make sure it doesn't happen again, and the builder didn't pay that, so it probably will happen again.
Actually, you said in your addendum that the builder paid the $500 fee.
There's no guarantee he'd pay $5,000 or whatever you propose, $7,000.
He won't.
He's not going to pay that.
If the
Are you
fees are
kidding me?
exorbitant, we're obviously going to, it's a lot cheaper to plant trees.
Plant as many trees as we have to.
So the question is, what do you think what do you think's best at this point? I mean,
Yeah, we're not going to pay an
is it
exorbitant
best to have
fee.
this, which is a reasonable tree design, and pay $2,800, or to squeeze a bunch more trees on there and pay nothing? I think from a city standpoint, you'd be better off. You'll have $2,800 for your tree budget, and you'll have a nice-looking lot. So,
I have a question for Alex. So if we make a mitigation fee ruling and they don't like it, what is the next step in the process? What happens next?
So the next step would be within 30 days, the decision of this commission could be appealed to the Board of Commissioners. And they would look at the decision to see if there was any legal error.
If there was
A legal error.
a legal error.
And then if there was no legal error, what happens?
Let me rephrase what I
Okay.
just said. It would be to make sure that there was no legal error and supported by sufficient evidence supporting the decision. And what was your question?
So it goes to the commissioners. And then where does they make the ruling, or do they send it back to us?
They would rule. I think they would rule, wouldn't they?
They would make a ruling. They could decide to send it back. They could affirm the decision, and then the decision could be appealed again to the Delaware Superior Court.
It has happened once since I've been here, and they affirmed the commission's decision.
Okay, are we ready to have a motion, or are we still thinking?
One
Yes.
additional comment. In the new tree code, proposed new tree code, there's a couple things. One, they're reducing the replacement requirement for 2 inches replacement tree for 1 inch removed, okay? The other thing, that it does say specifically fee in lieu of mitigation, that the permit applicant should pay a fee in lieu of mitigation in the amount of $1,200 for each replacement tree required. So it's a specific amount, and there's no,
Caliber inch, it's not per caliber inch.
Well, it's not
On the
a
type of
minimum,
tree.
it's not, that is the number.
yeah, and there's certainly no penalty aspect to the fee in lieu mitigation.
Right.
Which you're proposing, so.
Well, you guys have to read the proposed code a little more in depth, because if you remove a tree without a permit, you're liable to the business loses its license for 2 years, and the property owner could lose if they have a rental license or an potential to rent the place, they would lose that for 2 years. There's a whole slew of things that go along with the penalties section, not fee in lieu of mitigation, okay?
Right.
But I just think it's really presumptuous of us to talk about a proposed code that we have 2-3 dozen comments sitting to be reviewed and probably at least 2 more meetings. So.
I just want to clarify that I don't want to punish you as the homeowners. It's just that this is not the first case that people seem to have just, not you, but the builders have not, I don't know, it seems to me that when you build so close to the tree, or that you have to take special care, and that special care should have been taken and was not. I don't want to punish you, but I do want to send a message to the builders in Rehoboth that this is not going to be acceptable going forward. And
How can we do that? Like, how can we change the system so the penalty goes to the person who had control over the situation?
This commission can't.
Well, that's sort of,
the only thing-
to me, that's the
Yes.
root of the whole problem.
I
The
don't
people
disagree with
that
you.
controlled the situation didn't do their job, and the people here have nothing to do with what happened. So how can we change that?
Well, I guess it's your job as the person that hired those people to make them toe the line. They didn't follow
Don't
the
have any
rules.
legal.
Well, I do
that
know
we're getting the bill.
Yeah, several
Correct.
homeowners, like to answer their question, a lot of times with homeowners, they will make it very clear to their contractor what they expect to be done in the site conditions and stuff like that if they're familiar with the town. And they will tell them to take extra cautions. And they will say, we've seen different types of tree protection. We've seen like a welded wire fence. We've seen tree armor. So it's finding a way to increase that. And it starts with education, and it starts with people willing to pay a little extra money for it as preventative maintenance. And you know, it's a hard thing to push education out there to builders and future homeowners that don't even live here yet. So, and that's why we always start with rated demolition with the tree stuff.
Hey, can I say something before we go any further? This is the first case I've heard, and I can see both sides of the story, but I just wanted, I think that we maybe should go back to the permitting system in the first place, and maybe it exists, but I'm not aware of it, that you cannot build a house or expand the footprint of the house within X number of feet of an existing tree.
I mean, that would be changing the zoning code. We don't really have that ability.
Yes.
The tree could have, listen, the tree could have been preserved. It's not their fault. They did not go out there and take a skid steer and knock it down. Okay, so it's kind of in between a rock and a hard place, so to speak.
Okay, are we anywhere near ready to entertain a motion?
I don't know what you want the motion to be as far as the fee. I am not comfortable with $2,000 an inch.
Okay.
I will go on record as saying that. I am not comfortable with that, not for them. And I don't think,
Fine, but not for
I,
us.
to me,
Okay, then let's come up with a number. I just wanted to throw out a number out there so that people will hear that under the current code, we can do this. We have the ability to do this.
and if I at all thought the homeowner was responsible and that they, had anything to do with the tree being taken down, I could halfway get behind it. But I still have a hard time with, they were fined for taking a tree down without a permit. That fine has been paid. In my opinion, a fee in lieu should not be punitive. It should be, what is the cost of, if they can't plant those trees on their property, what what would it cost the city to plant those trees someplace and take care of them for 2 years? That, in my mind, is what the fee in lieu should be.
It would seem to me that, I mean, you could plant, like, Liz could get out there and dig the holes herself. No. And it would be a lot cheaper. But,
I don't know, you haven't seen my rates.
but, anyway, you could probably plant a nice 2.5 to 3 inch caliper, 2 to 2.5 inch caliper specimen tree in one of the parks. You could plant 3 of those and take care of them. You know, if doing it at doing it at wholesale price, you could probably do that for around maybe, say, $750 a tree. You think that's a reasonable?
I mean, the estimates I see for planting trees on private property are about anywhere from $800 to $1,200 to just plant the tree. Now, what do I pay for municipal projects after we have an ongoing contract with the commercial bid rate and plant 30 trees at a time? I don't even think that's comparable to what the private property pays.
Right. Private property, doing it on a private property is a lot different because they pay the retail.
Yeah, the builder gets a better deal than you think. Some of the builders plant their own trees.
Right.
Some of them go right to Forest View and plant on their own. I don't know about this particular builder. A lot use the same landscaper over and over that they can rely on. So I would think they would get a little bit better deal than you hiring somebody to plant one tree on your property one time.
Right. I mean, to me, it would make sense then to do, say, I mean, if we do fee in lieu of mitigation, then the city would be planting the trees. So, I mean,
let me put it this way. $1,200 does not cover the lifespan of a tree we plant on city property.
no.
Isn't the fee designed to cover the care for 2 years?
I don't know where you got the 2 years from. I mean,
I thought from past meetings, but I could be
I mean, that
wrong.
seems reasonable. That seems like maybe that's why this commission came up, how the commission came up with the fee. I think if you look back at the minutes, you just did the cost of like planting the tree and then maybe rounded it up $100 to take care of at least a couple years worth of like watering and mulching. But let me tell you, that's not going to cover pruning. Not even the first time you prune the tree with a professional. So
No, never.
But I think that's reasonable to think that it would cover just the planting of the tree. Because we talked about it in trees, they run the gamut. Like a dogwood, for example, is a very expensive tree to purchase because it grows so slowly.
Right.
A red maple is a cheap tree, relatively.
Right.
I have an idea that if you planted a little bit larger trees, it would reduce your caliper inches, and maybe we could kind of come up with a compromise that way, because actually planting a whole bunch of trees, it doesn't sound as expensive as I'm proposing, but it's not cheap. Then, like Liz said, taking care of them is not cheap either. So if the trees that you planted in the back maybe were a little bit higher caliber, is that something that might work, Liz? If a little bit larger caliper for those 2 trees in the back and the 1 larger tree in the front?
Yeah, so like we had talked about before, if you guys wanted to put together a motion that set a per inch fee to be, and if they wanted to resubmit a planning plan, then we could calculate it from there. As long as that was now and not at the certificate of occupancy, so the fee would have to be paid in a reasonable timeframe.
So you were planting 3-inch trees,
It's a minimum, yeah.
the minimum of 3-inch trees?
That's the 3 trees make up 9 inches, and then there's 7 inches left. We're talking about 7 inches is what we're talking about.
Right.
I like that idea of maybe increasing the caliper of what's going in.
I don't know.
to
I don't know.
help make up some of the 7 inches.
Well, we'd have to leave that up to them. We'd have to just say, it's this much per inch, and you could either do it by increasing the caliper of the trees that you plant, or by
The number of
paying.
inches,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because
So
even
they-
if they want to increase the caliper, that doesn't necessarily mean they'll be able to.
Find a tree.
And
Yeah.
the
It's expensive to
It'll be
plant
cheap.
a large caliper tree.
It'll be cheaper to go from 3 to 4 inches. It'll be less than $400 if that's what we're asking.
but it's a little harder to find those.
It's a lot harder to find
It's a
them.
lot harder to find those, and then the survivability rate of those is not, is
They do pretty well because in the private property because they have the irrigation, people there to water them. It's surprisingly they've done okay when I do my inspections.
are you planning to put in irrigation? Okay.
Okay, we've been at this for an hour now. I think we've pretty much gone over everything we can go over.
I just add one thing for the record.
Sure.
So a fee in lieu of mitigation under 253-36C1 may only be granted by this body if, upon a recommendation by the city arborist, and I believe, did we have that already?
Yep.
Yep.
And before granting a fee in lieu of mitigation, this body must find that the applicant demonstrated the replacement of trees on the site is not a viable option because meeting the requirements of this article would result in undue hardship, that all reasonable alternatives relevant to protection and mitigation have been exhausted, and that granting a fee in lieu of mitigation will not adversely impact the intent and purposes of these regulations. The term undue hardship is undefined in the code.
Right.
I'm only familiar of it in the ADA context, where it would be a substantial burden or an extreme financial difficulty or something like that.
Well, I feel like the code is in place to protect the health and safety and welfare of the whole community, and that trees play a big role in this. I see if you do plant that tree in the front, that kind of replaces the tree that was lost, and it also offers shade to the sidewalk, or possible shade, or I feel like every tree is important, and the tree that came down was important, but I do think that you have shown that it would be hard to fit another 7 inches of caliper on that lot. I think that that burden has been, my feeling is that that burden has been met unless you could reduce the 7 to maybe 5 or 4 by planting somewhat larger trees. But it's not easy, and it's not always, they don't always survive. So I just wanted to add that I think the whole point of us imposing this is to protect the safety, health, and welfare of everybody in Rehoboth and other property owners. So does anyone want to make a motion?
I mean, I can make a motion that that the fee in lieu be, I would go with $400 per inch for the 7 inches. And if if at the time the final planning plan is done, if they've increased the number of inches, either by, say, deciding to put an additional tree or increasing the size of the trees that are planted, that fee can be reduced. Still down to the $400 per inch, but $400 for whatever inches are remaining.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
That,
I mean, I would love to see like an additional tree added, say either along the side or the back, but I understand that you don't want to put too many trees on a lot where they, the chance of survival is decreased. And you have to look at what's, your neighbors have to know whether a tree can survive, but.
my, I think the fee should be a little higher, just so that we can actually cover the cost of planting.
My only concern, I mean, you can make a motion but they've just, going forward, that fee is going to be $1,200 per tree.
Yes.
Well,
So
but
that's,
the tree is 2 inches in the proposed code, so that's $600 an inch. Keep in mind. Yeah, but that's proposed.
I made my motion. If you all want to change the motion, change the
Well,
motion.
the motion hasn't been seconded yet, has it?
You seconded the motion? Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I want to clarify that your motion is $400
On the 7 inches.
per caliper inch for up to 7 inches to be reduced by,
Well, it can be reduced if they choose to plant, say, let's say they go back and look and say, okay, we can plant one more tree. Whatever the size of that tree is can reduce that 7 inches. Or if instead of doing 3-inch trees, they go to 4-inch trees, they could reduce the number of inches that they need to pay the fee in lieu of.
okay, but we need a concise motion.
You guys make the motion, because clearly I'm not making it the way you want it made.
No, it just,
My motion is that $400 per inch for the 7 inches of replacement. If they plant additional trees, that would reduce the required fee in lieu. Or if they plant larger trees than the 3 inches they're required to plant per tree already,
the 7
no, like, let's say the two in the backyard are supposed to be 3-inch trees, correct? Let's say they are able to find and decide to go with 4-inch trees on that, they've added 2 inches of caliper to their plan, that could reduce the 7 that they're paying on down to, say, 5 if they get 2 4-inch trees instead of 2 3-inch trees.
okay.
Is that, I mean,
That's clear to me.
Are you seconding that motion? Yes. Okay, are we ready to vote?
sure.
I'm going to let you vote last because this is your first meeting, so you don't have to, you can listen to how everyone else votes first. So Katie, do you want to vote?
I agree with the motion to plant 400, or to do the fee in lieu of, for 7 inches at $400 per inch, right? $400 per inch.
Okay, so you vote yes.
Yes, I do.
Renee?
I vote yes.
I also vote yes.
And I vote yes.
Okay, the chair votes no, but the chair's been overruled, and so the motion carries.
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
You really are. I live practically at 219 Newcastle, so we will see each other.
Sounds good.
In June.
Are we free free to go then?
Yes.
or-
Yes.
All right.
You're released.
I got plenty of copies.
Just when you guys reach out, if you want to plant bigger trees.
He left with them.
But just let me know what you decide to do, because I don't want you to come to the final.
I hope there's going to be somebody here for the other.
Okay.
Your house is going to be lovely. Yeah.
I just wanted it to be in the minutes. This is not acceptable.
That's fine. I have a hard time with a punitive aspect. When they're asking for a fee, I have a hard time of it being punitive.
This was a terrible initiation.
Next one?
The next one is also bad. I don't think we have anyone here.
Well, the guy was here.
Well, I have a report to read. I guess it's up to you guys if you want to hear. Whoops.
Go ahead. I'm going to guess he's going to come back in, so.
So this one is a request to remove a street tree. So if we want to hear it, we want to postpone it, up to you guys.
Those are street trees?
No, this one, the one I have
The
sitting.
next one is street trees.
Yeah.
The next one is street trees.
Yes.
The 2 pine trees?
Yes, they're street trees.
Okay.
Not to be confused with the one sitting on the lot.
Thought it was one loblolly pine.
But it's a street tree.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't, I went to see them, but all 4 of those trees have orange stuff around them. Are you going to, we're only going to talk about the 2
Street trees.
by the
Yes.
driveway today?
Yes.
That's all
Sitting
that's on
in
the
between the
agenda.
curb, the sidewalk and the curb.
But
So it's up,
Are they coming back for the other 2? What's happening with the other 2?
I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah, you were correct, Chair. Only the double trunk yellow pine is on the agenda, so that's the only one we can deal with today.
Okay, let's hear your report.
Okay.
We should make that a record when we go on record for it, that we're only hearing that.
Okay, the next issue is, let's see. The case requested by Dave McCarthy of Rehoboth Property Development on behalf of Robert and Janet Hart, owners of the property located at 121 Rodney Street. And this applies only to the double 2 pine trees that are street trees.
Correct. So this is a request to remove a street tree, not an appeal of trees on private property. So these have no fee to come to the commission, and they have no advertising or noticing requirement.
Oh, okay.
All right. The following is the report of the city arborist regarding the above referenced request that is to be heard before the commission on Monday, March 27, 2023. The applicant has submitted a request to remove 1 double trunk loblolly pine street tree adjacent to 121 Rodney Street. A planting plan was not submitted to replace the loblolly pine. The existing pine has trunk diameters of 14 and 15 inches each. The tree is in fair condition due to a restricted root zone and overhead utility pruning. A new home is currently being constructed on the property. The curb cut is pre-existing and must be widened to meet the current city code. In this instance, there is space to accommodate the required 13-foot flared curb cut without removing either the pine street tree or an adjacent 8-inch diameter holly. As per city code, Parks and Shade Tree Commission has the authority to permit the removal of trees on city property. 253-12 Maintenance C. No person shall plant, spray, preserve, prune, remove, cut above ground, or otherwise disturb any tree on any street or municipal-owned property without first receiving permission from the Parks and Shade Tree Commission. Any tree removed from municipal-owned property must be replaced unless otherwise authorized by the Parks and Shade Tree Commission.
Okay, thank you, Liz. Anyone have questions for Liz? I'm here to accept public comment, but seeing no public present, we're going to, we have correspondence from Steve Cook. Let me use yours. I don't think I need to read the whole thing, but I think just one or two sentences is enough. The entire email is in the agenda. But he does say, over the decades, we have been dismayed by the loss of the great majority of loblolly pines in the neighborhood. I estimate that during my lifetime, we've lost 90% of them, all due to folks developing property who choose to remove them. And then he also mentions that they're important for the wildlife and that they're native trees. And he strongly urges the commission to reject this request and to refuse to allow the removal of this tree. As the city arborist points out, there is space to accommodate the required 13-foot flared curb cut without removing either the pine tree or the adjacent 8-inch diameter holly. In other words, there's absolutely no need to remove this tree. Anyway, he goes on at some length, but I think those are the relevant remarks. Does anyone have questions?
Well, I just want to make sure that that it's understood that it is a loblolly pine, because in 2 documents, it's referred to it as a yellow pine.
Right.
So I think that should be established first.
The contractor called it a yellow pine. They can be used interchangeably.
Can they?
I think we all know them as loblolly.
Good catch. I saw it.
I mean,
Separate trees, right? Or we can't tell.
the trunk is split.
Probably you would call them 2 trees. It could go either way. That's why I called it a tree and then gave both the measurements.
Okay.
I mean, my initial reaction when I went by and saw it was, there's no need to take these down.
Yeah.
And if you go further down the street, there's a spot where it's a utility pole, but there's a utility pole, 2 driveways go right up, and there appears to be no problem with getting in and out of the driveway.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an easy life as a giant street tree growing in a
Right.
contained pit, but
Right.
it seems to be making it so far,
Yes.
against the odds, if you will.
Do we know why they want to take this tree down as opposed to taking the holly tree down that's not even a tree? I mean, it's just a stem coming up.
I didn't ask their reasoning. They just put for the proposed curb cut expansion, because the pre-existing curb cut is just like a little bit too small to meet the current code. So it does have to be widened, and, it has that 1.5 foot flare on each side of a 10-foot regular cut. So it makes it 13. So in this case, it can just be widened towards the holly without removing either tree.
Right.
Well, in my personal opinion, I don't think there's any real reason to take it down. I mean, I have lots of pine trees on my property, and, you live with them. I mean, you deal with them. They were there first.
Right.
And I don't know do you have any idea what the lifespan of those trees is, or how old they are? They've been there a while. Those are big trees.
Yeah, and they would grow even slower because of their contained root zone, so they're probably older. I mean, pines grow fast in general, but they were probably older than like a loblolly you would find in the forest of that size.
Or on my property.
Yeah.
Okay, does anyone want to make a motion on this one?
I make a motion that we keep the street tree, that we don't allow them to take it, to remove the tree or trees.
So correct me if I'm wrong. Our motion should be in the affirmative, and then we deny the motion, correct?
That's what Glenn likes.
So, yeah, so the motion would be that we grant permission to remove those 2 loblolly pine street trees.
Really?
That's how it works. Yeah,
That's how it's supposed to work.
yeah,
That motion and then vote.
right,
So I'll second the motion.
right.
And I vote yes.
No, you vote no.
No. I
Wait,
vote
maybe,
no.
hold on, can I have a timeout? Maybe we should restate the you should probably restate the motion,
Correct.
So then
just so we're all on the same page.
the motion would be to
Remove.
Allow the
Grant.
grant permission of removal of this double street tree, the double loblolly pines at 121 Rodney Street.
I'll second that motion.
Okay,
Okay, now are we ready to vote?
yes.
Maybe we should say what a yes and no vote entails.
Okay, a yes
Alex.
vote means that the trees will come down, and a no vote means that the trees will remain.
Correct.
So, do you want me to start the voting, or? I vote no. The trees should remain.
Are you ready to vote?
I vote no also, the tree should remain.
Good.
I vote no, the tree should remain.
And I vote no, that the trees should remain.
And the chair agrees, and the motion the motion is defeated, and the trees are to remain.
That's interesting. All my parliamentary procedure, I didn't know the motions.
Laura, I
Oh,
thought
I'm
that you
sorry.
did a really nice job of stating your position on,
Should we close the meeting before?
oh, yeah, we should close it.
Oh. Oh, there's no other, there being no other business, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, meeting adjourned.
I thought you did a really good
Wait, I think